Good morning. I'm coming to you right now to discuss what I would have done if I were governor currently of Florida. I would have put us in a state of emergency to provide relief to the majority of people. Under a state of emergency, we can combat price gouging and inflation. Without a state of emergency, if you go look, price gouging is not illegal because we currently do not have legislation in place to actively and accurately combat capitalism in a way that it does not hurt our citizens. Understand that once the powers that you give me to utilize for the people put me in a position to say that we need to be in a state of emergency, we still don't know if the government is going to shut down tomorrow. Therefore, we need to be thinking ahead for the people. In a state of emergency, rental or sell essential commodities during a declared state of emergency prohibit against unconscionable prices. Unconscionable prices, not right or reasonable, is that definition. Not right or reasonable. So we have to be very careful now that we look at if indeed the majority are hurting, and what we are seeing is the majority are hurting based on inflation. This is a man-made emergency, and because it affects the entire state, I would on a day-by-day basis have us in a state of emergency. And we would start to collect data to see the good effects and the negative effects of making people stop price gouging. Now, this is important. They talk about commodity goods, and it is very important to understand that this refers to any goods, services, materials, merchandise, supplies, equipment, resources, or other articles of commerce, and includes without limitation food, water, ice, chemicals, petroleum products, and lumber necessary for consumption or use as a direct result of the emergency. It is very important that the next line, which you can find on myfloridasenate.gov, statute 501.160. These are the governing legislation powers that are given to the governor. So when we don't think that our state can interact and intercede and intervene to help the people, it's not true. They're just not doing it. There is a place for progressive thinking. There is a place for conservative thinking. There is a place for these things. Now, it is very important, like I've told you guys over and over again, get yourselves a Black Law Dictionary. I'm going to always preach that because it is very important, because it says it is prima facie evidence that a price is unconscionable. Prima facie, based on the law. It's on page 702 of Black's Law Dictionary. Evidence that is necessary to begin a hearing. Sorry about that. That's preliminary evidence. Prima facie evidence. Evidence that will establish a fact or sustain a judgment unless contradictory evidence is produced. What this means is, if someone were to still raise their prices and you were to bring it to your local representative's attention, that representative now has the availability and the authority to go and hold that business accountable, to say, why are you raising your prices? These are going to come with the, as I like to say, we got to take our crookeds with our straights. We're going to need to learn what happens when we push back against capitalism to help the majority of the people. But it's important that we get there. So if people decide to, that own businesses, say that, hey, we need to raise these prices because that gives me data to bring back to the people to say this is what's happening, and now it puts me on a way ahead to start to say, okay, here is how we're going to combat those individuals that are hurting our businesses or making our businesses have to practice in price gouging. And we're going to call it what it is, price gouging. So what we can do right now to combat inflation and give some level of a static relief, knowing that prices will not raise, knowing that rent will not raise, is I would put this state in a state of emergency. This is my thought process today. It will not change unless the data changes. I am running for governor in 2026. Support the people who support you. Support the people who support you. If you are in the majority who feels unsupported by the minority, then don't vote for the minority. Don't vote for people who don't support you. If you have not heard your representatives talking to you about how to combat or how to bring up ideas to help with this inflation problem, instead of just talking about the problem, also bringing a solution, we don't need that type of thought process. We need progressive thinkers. I am going to be that progressive thinker in 2026. I will never ask you for money. I will never ask you for money. I only ask that you support me by sharing what I'm putting out so that I can get the support to help out. I guarantee you one thing. My gray beanie is coming back. I seem to think better when it is there, but it is coming back. Just had a couple of things I had to take care of today. I appreciate you guys listening, and let's put some pressure on our representatives. We have a lot of areas, and compartmentalized government is important. But right now, Florida should be in a state of emergency since we have a man-made emergent problem. State of emergencies are not just natural disasters. They are also the ones that we bring on ourselves. And if we don't have leadership in place that is asking for these things, then we have a problem. And I assure you right now, I happen to go on the floridasenate.gov session bills, and I have been looking for bills that have been put in since 1988 to see if there have ever been legislation that has ever been put forward for the betterment of the majority when we've had issue. And I have not run across those bills yet. If I do run across that bill, this will be where you hear it from, because I'm going to study it and figure out what happened. If it worked, if it didn't work, where the data is, how can I get the data? I'm working now today so that I will be more prepared to be governor in 2026. Support me, please.